Hi, you're welcome to the 3D Pattern Design Software Course 101. I'm Henrietta Agbola, and I'm the CEO of House of Henry Limited, of which Fashion and Art Academy is one of its 4 subdivisions. In this course, we shall be using the Bernina MyLabel Pattern Design Software platform to learn how to generate and design our patterns. We will also be learning how to correlate and fit our design patterns on our 3D model. So let's get straight to work. The first thing we're going to do is to learn about the interface. That's the software interface that we're using for our 3D pattern design software course here. The first side of this interface is called the Studio Box, where you can see the section of the interface has 5 drawers. We have the model drawer. You can see it's already defaultly opened with one of the models already displayed, the default model that comes with the package already displayed here. This is the default model, but you can always generate other models that you would get after you have imputed your measurements to derive those models. The second drawer is the styles drawer. Here we have different kinds of designs that you can generate using the pattern software. We have jackets, we have skirts, we have dresses, pants or trousers, we have tops, and we also have coats here and shirts. Now we're going to be getting into that very soon. The next drawer here is the fabric drawer. In this fabric drawer, you can see we have many patterns of fabrics that we can use to design our pattern. Different colors, different types, different, shades of fabrics that we can use to design our pattern. Underneath that, we have the stitches drawer, where we can select whichever stitches we would like to use to design our pattern. Beneath that, we have the embroidery drawer, and we have different embroideries that we can use on our pattern to design it. And the final drawer is the button drawer, where you have a gallery of buttons that you can use to design your 3D pattern. So let's go straight and start with the model drawer. In the model drawer, we have our default model. And this model is actually, this 3D model is an avatar of yourself or of your client's measurements. It's meant to reflect who you are, your body shape, your size, your measurements. So the first thing we're going to do is to launch the model. So just click on it. And it launches it in the model view box here. You can see this is the model preview box where the model is launched. You can make it bigger or you can make it smaller. Let's make it smaller. Okay, great. In between the model view box and your studio box, we have the work table. On the work table, we will be putting our pattern pieces, and we're going to get to that in a bit. Let's start with our model. Now you can see that this is your model, the default model. But we will now create your avatar. That means your shape, how you want it to look like, either your shape or your client's shape, by imputing measurements. And once we impute the measurements, it will begin to update itself. So let's see what I mean. In the model properties here, we are going to start imputing our measurements, but there's already the default measurements here. We have the default height measured in inches. We have the default size of underbust here also in inches, and we have this portion here that you can decide to have your model be with or without shoulder pads. If you want to make a jacket, you may need to have the measurements of your model with shoulder pads. So let's see how that looks like. So if I click on it and I click on with shoulder pads, what do we see? We can see that our model already is wearing shoulder pads. So the measurements will be taken with shoulder pads in mind. So let's go and just erase the shoulder pads. I'll put it without shoulder pads. So you can see it has cleared off the shoulder pads now. So let's just try and put in some basic measurements. Let's assume I want to increase or reduce the height. I want to change the height to maybe, let's reduce the height to, okay, you can see I'm reducing. As I'm reducing it, the model is getting shorter. If I want to increase it, the model will get taller. Okay, as you can see that in the model view. So once I click the arrow that goes up, the model gets taller, as you can see. If I want the model to be shorter, all I have to do is just keep on clicking it and it will get shorter. All right, beautiful. Now let's try and change our underbust size. Let's change that to, say, 33. Now when you change that, you would see when we click here, the underbust will actually get a bit smaller. You can see that the underbust has changed in size. Let's reduce it. Let's make it obviously smaller. Let's make it 13. So now I've changed it to 30. I click on it on the model view and see that it will change the size. You can see it has slimmed it down a bit. Beautiful. Okay, let's now go into other measurements. We've talked about the height. You can talk about the height in detail. You can look at different kind of height. We have the cervical height. Now, if I click on this cervical height and I want to know how to measure it, it shows me that it's showing me where to take the measurements from. But if I really want to get the instructions on how to take this measurement, I click on the instructions tab here and it shows me how to take the measurements. So clicking on any of all these measurements shows me how to measure it. Okay, and you can see the blue line here that talks about where it's taken from to the bottom where it stops. Okay, let's look at the waist height. Just click on the measurement and it shows you how to measure it. Let me take it back to the work table. So I'd like to check on the girths. The girths are actually the widths that are measured horizontally. It's another name for width. Okay, beautiful. So now I'm going to change some very vital measurements. So let's change the bust, let's change the waist, and let's change the hips. Okay, I'd like to make it bigger so we can see how our model changes in size. Okay, so when I click on that, the hips, the bust get bigger, but I could just decide to change it directly, and let's make it 40. Okay, so I've made it 40. Can you see what's happening here? You can see that the bust gets bigger. So you can see right here that our model has been changed. The bust has increased. Let's increase the waist and the hips. So let me change the waist to, let's change it to 29. Let's see what it looks like. You can see that the waist has gotten a bit bigger. Let's make it obviously bigger so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's make the waist 33, for instance. Let's see how 33 would look like on our model. You can see that the waist has changed. It's based on the measurements we are imputing. Let's change the hips also. Let's change the hips to 44. And let's see what happens to the hips here. Wow. Now you can see that the 3D model changes based on the measurements you impute. And that's why it's called a 3D pattern design software, because we're working with the 3D model and we're also going to work with our 3D designs. Great. So now we have changed the measurements, and these are the measurements we're going to work with. Now you can see that the bust is 40, the waist is 33, and the hips is 44.